Aloha. It's your favorite friend with questionable character. Aloha, Mr. Hand, coming to you on this Groundhog's Day, courtesy of our friends at From the 108, and of course, powered by Jack Daniels. Yeah. So, since today is Groundhog's Day, and it sounds like Puxatawny Phil saw his shadow, which means 6 more weeks of winter, I felt I would jump on and go through something that's heartwarming and enriching and makes you think of summer a little bit more. Of course, I'm talking about the newly released White Sox GOAT tournament, GOAT being greatest of all time, and it takes 16 White Sox teams throughout their history and has a simulation in which it will be determined which team is the greatest White Sox team of all time. Now, I have a copy of the grid, and I will go through and give you what I predicted for each one. And I know some of it will be controversial. So, I want to start with the number 1 seed. The number 1 seed is, of course, the Don't Stop Believin' 2005 Chicago White Sox. They are playing the play-in vote. And one of the teams that is part of the play-in vote is the 1994 Chicago White Sox team. I am going to use that team as the winner of the play-in vote. Just because looking at it, I think that's probably the best team that was there. So, and then we have the number 8, the 1990 White Sox versus the number 9, 1954 Chicago White Sox. The number 5, 1983 winning ugly White Sox versus the number 12, 1964 lost the pennant by a game Chicago White Sox. And then the end of the left side of my left side of the bracket is the number 4, 1959 Go-Go White Sox versus the number 13 COVID Warrior 2020 Chicago White Sox. Now, moving over to the other side of the bracket, we have the number 3, 1906 Hitless Wonder White Sox, who beat the Chicago Cubs in the World Series, versus the number 14, in what is probably a tribute to Bill Melton, 1972 Chicago White Sox. Then we have the number 6, 1993 Chicago White Sox. Seriously underrated. I can't believe they're a 6 seed. Give me a break. This should be like a 4 or 5. Versus the number 11, 2008 Blackout White Sox. The number 7 seed is the Southside Hitmen 1977 Chicago White Sox versus the number 10 seed, the 2000 Chicago White Sox. And then the final first round pairing is the number 2, 1917 Chicago White Sox versus the number 15, 1936 Chicago White Sox. So you have the bracket. Again, here is the empty one. I have 2 here. One, this one, which is empty, and I'll try and zoom in so you can see everything. Hopefully you got all of it. It's available. If you go look at their Twitter site, it's available there. You can print the bracket out for yourself. So with all that being said, here we go. So I'm going to start with the number 1 seed, as I said, was the 2005 Don't Stop Believin' White Sox versus the play-in White Sox team that I selected, which was 1994. And in the upset, the number 16 seed wins. The 1994 Chicago White Sox, I think, would beat the 2005 Chicago White Sox. I think the Sox lineup in 94 was deeper. I think the pitching was on par. I think the bullpen might have been a little deeper in 1994 than it was in 2005. I know you're gonna say what a great bullpen and 4 consecutive starts and everything else, but I'm looking at the entire picture, and I just think that you have Ozzie the player versus Ozzie the manager. So I will take the 1994 Chicago White Sox beating the 2005 Chicago White Sox. That's right, the champs are dead. Long live the champs. Moving to the next bracket, I have the 1990 Chicago White Sox against the 1954 Chicago White Sox. I will take the 1954 Chicago White Sox, and as much as I love the 1990 team, and I really did, I love that team. They were fun to watch. It was great. I was hoping that they could pull it out, but that Oakland A's team in the Western Division was just too strong. Too much firepower, too much pitching for the White Sox to compete. But you did see the beginning of the better teams in the early 90s that was coming. So, but in this case, I will take the 1954 Chicago White Sox. Next bracket is the 1983 Chicago White Sox versus 1964. As I said, the 64 White Sox lost the pennant, and it was a different playoff format back then. It was basically whoever won the American League and National League met in the World Series. There were no playoffs or anything like that. The 1964 team lost by 1 game to the, go figure, the New York Yankees. There's a funny story about after a game in Chicago, Phil Linz got on the team bus and started playing a harmonica, and Yogi Berra was the manager and flipped out about it, and the Yankees caught fire after that and came back and overtook the White Sox and won the pennant. But for this, I am taking the 1983 team. That was one of the first teams I ever truly loved and enjoyed watching. And they were, when they were on back then, they were appointment television to watch. And then we have the 1959 team versus the 2020 team. Granted, 2020 is a 60-game sample size. 1959 won the American League pennant. Where I think the dividing line is here. Al Lopez is a Hall of Famer. Ricky Renteria, we saw what happened with the bullpen. So I got to go 1959. Okay? So moving to the other side of the bracket. 1906 versus 1972. 1906 Hitless Wonders versus the Dick Gallen, Wilbur Wood. Steve Stone's on this team too. Chicago White Sox of 1972. And remember, Bill Melton didn't play the whole season. He had a back injury and missed a significant amount of the season. But I still will take the 1972 White Sox over the 1906 White Sox. Moving on to the next bracket, the 1993 White Sox versus the 2008 White Sox. I'll be honest with you, this is no contest. 1993. The 77 White Sox versus the 2000 White Sox. When these teams look in the mirror at each other, they're basically each looking at themselves. The pitching left something to be desired. The offense was incredible. With this, I am going to take the 77 team over the 2000 team. Yes, I understand the 2000 team won the division, but we saw what happened to them against Seattle. The 77 team had a much greater capability of coming back at any point in time, and it was just fun to go to the park back then and hear na 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 hey hey goodbye. And the final bracket in the first round, 1917 versus 1936. 17 world champs, 36 not. Selection made, 1917. So, moving on to the second round, we have 1994 versus 1954. Again, I got to go with 1994. I think that was one of the most complete teams I've ever seen with the White Sox. Had it all. They had the starting pitching. They had the offense. They had the bullpen. They had it all, and they were hitting their stride. Unfortunately, we know what happened in August. Matter of fact, I think the date was August 12th, 1994, when there was a lockout and the World Series wound up being canceled. Would the White Sox have won the World Series that year? We'll never know. They had a great shot at it. The Expos were going to be a very tough team. The Yankees were looking very tough then. And the Indians were only behind by like a game or two at that point. So you had an exciting month and a half left of baseball that hopefully the White Sox would have held on or caught fire and moved forward. But again, we'll never know. But I'm taking the 94 White Sox over the 54 White Sox. So then I have the 1983 White Sox versus the 1959 White Sox. Both had Cy Young winners. Lamar Hoyt in 83, Early Wynn in 59. The 59 team had an MVP in Nellie Fox. But I think overall, I have to go with the 83 team. The 99 wins means a lot. You have two Hall of Fame managers squaring up against each other in Al Lopez for 59, Tony La Russa for 83. And I just think the 83 team wins on this one. Let's face it, that pitching staff, in the second half went 42-5, for God's sakes, the big three. Lamar Hoyt, Richard Dotson, Floyd Bannister, and you had Britt Burns as your number 4. So I have the 1983 White Sox moving forward. So that means the 94 White Sox face the 83 White Sox in this bracket. But moving over to the other bracket, second round, 1972 White Sox versus the 1993 White Sox. I'll be honest with you, this is 93. The similarities are also there with one exception. You had a MVP first baseman on both teams, Dick Allen in 72, Frank Thomas in 93. But the pitching was much stronger in 93 than it was in 72. And the bullpen was much stronger. So I got to go with the 1993 team over the 72 team. And then we have 1977 versus 1917. I have to go with 17. World Series champs. More balanced if you really look at the team over the 77 team. The 77 team, they can mash the ball with the best of them. But the pitching, you know, Steve Stone was there, Wilbur Wood, you know, Ken Kravick was another one who I would believe was there then. I'll take the champs. So the final 4 we have are the 1994 White Sox versus the 1983 White Sox, the 1993 White Sox versus the 1917 White Sox. For the purposes of this, I am going to take the 1983 White Sox beating the 1994 White Sox. I think it would be the other way around, but for the purposes of this is the way I'm going, and you'll find out why in a second. Because in the other bracket, I'm taking the 1993 White Sox over the 1917 White Sox. Just think again, I know I used the champion argument, but I just think that 93 team was incredibly well balanced. And frankly, I think, honestly, the 94 team may have been better, but for the purposes of this, I'm going with the 93 team because they played a full season. So in the final, I have the 1983 winning ugly White Sox versus the 1993 White Sox. And I broke it down, and in one case, it's the same person. So partially the same person. So I broke it down by position to figure who I would take. For catcher, I had to go with Fisk in 83. Fisk was there part of the time in 93, but I got to take the 83 version of Fisk. First base, this is no contest, Frank Thomas. MVP versus Peshoric and Greg Walker, no contest. Second base, I am going with Julio Cruz over Joey Cora. Just because Julio Cruz was the spark that the team needed when they acquired him in a trade, they traded out Tony Bernazard, who started the year as the second baseman, and brought in Cruz, and then they took off basically once they plugged Cruz in and started rolling. At shortstop, I got to go with Ozzie in 93. I mean, you had Scotty Fletcher there in 83, Dubzinski. No, I'll take Ozzie in 93. Third base, Vance Law, Robin Ventura, Gold Glove, better offensive player. Left field, controversial, but I'll go with Tim Raines over Ron Kittle. I think Kittle brought power to the 83 team. I mean, 35 home runs, 100 RBIs, Rookie of the Year. I mean, can't argue with any of that. But I think Raines fit better into the 93 team and brought more to the table than Kittle did. That's my pick. I know it might be a little controversial to some people, but that's my pick. Center field, Rudy Law versus Lance Johnson. This is fascinating, and it's almost a toss-up, but you could say Rudy Law because of the stolen bases. He had like 77 in 1983, but I'm going to go with Lance Johnson because I just think he was a better hitter and provided more to the White Sox than Rudy Law did. I know that's a loaded statement. I'm going to get grief for it, but whatever. So I'll take the one dog in center field in 93. Right field, again, this is no contest. None whatsoever. Harold in 83, no contest. Ellis Burks, great year. Harold in 83, no contest. The DH, you got 93, you got Bo Jackson, you got George Bell, but 83, you got the Bull, Greg Luzinski. Again, that's no contest. You got to go 83. Starting pitching. This is where it gets interesting. Now, you had a Cy Young winner at the top of both rotations. Lamar Hoyt in 83, Jack McDowell in 93. Give the edge to Hoyt on this one. The second pitcher, Alex Fernandez for 93, Richard Dotson for 83. I think you might have to go Dotson, but it's really, really close. The third starter for both teams, I'm going with the left-handers in this case. Wilson Alvarez in 93, Floyd Bannister in 83. Bannister being the big free agent signing that year. When he was signed, George Steinbrenner basically called Einhorn and Reinsdorf, called them Abbott and Costello for the way they handled negotiations or something like that. But it gets really tough. This is where it tips to 93, in my opinion. Britt Burns versus Jason Beret. Britt Burns was a great pitcher, but had a tendency to get hurt a lot. So the scales tip to the 93 team, in my opinion, based on that. So I'll go 1993 there. The bullpen, no contest, 93 much better than 83. Yeah, 83 you had Salome, Barojas, Dick Tidrow, and some other guys. 93 you had McCaskill, Roberto Hernandez, Scott Radinsky. I'll take the 93 squad. And then finally, the manager. This is no contest. Gene Lamont, 93, who I thought was an manager. I prefer Jeff Torborg personally. That's my own opinion. But you had Tony La Russa in 83, and you can't go against the Hall of Famer. So I take La Russa as the manager in 83. Now, when you tally that up, that means I have 4 picks from the 83 team in this, and 7 for 8 actually. Wait, my math is wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7 for 5 for 83, 7 for 93. So the winner, in my opinion, based on this, is the 1993 Chicago White Sox. Let me be clear. I think, in all honesty, the 94 White Sox would have cleaned the table, but for the purposes of this, it would have been boring to have 93 versus 94. So I went with 83 instead of 94. I think they disrespected the 94 team immensely in the way they did this. And I think they disrespected the 93 team as well in the way they did this, just because I think the 93 team should have been much higher. I think that you have the 83 team as a 5 seed. You have the 93 team as a 6 seed. I think those two should move up a little bit. I understand you got to have the 3 champs as your top 3 seeds. That's 2005, 1906, 1917, and then the 59 team because they went to the World Series. But conveniently missing from here, the 1919 team. I wonder why. So those are my picks. Hope you enjoyed them. We'll be on later this week to talk some 108 tourney things. I'm sure you saw the message from Beefloaf a couple weeks ago at the beginning of the one podcast where My Sox Summer was missing, going through some of the uniqueness of the tourney for 2021. And then I'll also be doing another Collector's Corner sometime this weekend. Got some cool stuff to show, featuring some Hall of Famers who have recently been in the news for new positions they accepted with MLB, hint, hint, as well as some other cool things that I've just recently managed to get my hands on. Some White Sox related, some not. So hopefully everyone has a great day. Hopefully this made you feel a little better in thinking about baseball. And of course, feel free to leave feedback, subscribe, tell me I suck, tell me I'm great, whatever you want. Thanks a lot, everybody. Talk to you later. And with that, I'm out. Bang!